The COVID-19 virus had already made severe damage to the humankind, but according to experts, the complete vanishing of this virus may take a minimum of 2 years to happen. Although we don't want to wait this long, but the rate of new infections is not slowing down, even when a year had almost passed. Before we head to the main content, let us first see how a pandemic usually ends. The epilogue of a pandemic may come with 3 major breakdowns. Number 1 is a medical one, which happens when the virus stops spreading by itself, and the number of new cases reaches 0. Although many countries have already reached this phase, but we cannot say that they will not be prone to the virus in upcoming months. The second one is a social breakdown, which occurs when the people themselves start to accept the virus, and head towards a new normal, following all the safety protocols. This is already happening around the world. The third one, and the most deadliest one, occurs when the government feels that whatever was to be done to stop the virus had already been done, and the situation is now out of their control. This can be really deadly, but has already been seen in many European countries. Although many vaccines are under production, but even if it is produced successfully, it will take almost 5 to 6 months to reach to every person on this earth. Combining all this information with some more medical predictions, we may conclude that the COVID-19 virus is going to stay here for at least a couple of years from now. In this situation, it's important to know about the things that may happen in the span of next few months. This is Daily Dope, and you're watching 5 situations that may happen if the COVID-19 virus stayed for 2 more years. The first wave of the COVID virus swept through the world when it was unprepared. Governments all over the world don't want this to happen again, and they've started preparing for the second wave, especially in the European continent, even when we're not fully out of the first one. The severity of second wave, and other waves that may come afterwards, depends largely upon how we escape through this one. The dreaded second wave may never come worldwide, as seen in the SARS virus case, but still, we cannot risk this, as we have seen how deadly the second wave proved, in case of the bubonic plague. Although the second wave is being discussed in the scientific community, but many feel that talking about it at this moment would be going much ahead in time, as we've not crossed the first one yet. The second wave, however, had already been seen in different clusters in different countries. For example, in South Korea, we've seen the development of the second wave in the nightclub area. The meat packing plant in Germany, and the market in Beijing, are also the examples of such clusters. If we can gain a better understanding about the kind of settings that trigger these clusters, we can prevent the second wave from spreading worldwide, limiting it to a relatively smaller area, preventing damage at a large level. Measures such as partial lockdown, and contact tracing in these clusters, is already being discussed, and most probably, they will be followed if any such outbreak happens. But the reality remains, that we don't know how deadly the second wave could be, as we've discovered very less about the COVID virus, and the majority part of it still remains undiscovered. Mutation is simply a change in genetic sequence of a virus. All viruses go through multiple mutations, as it is a part of their life cycle. Mutation is not always a bad sign, as it may yield a weaker strain of the original virus, which is predicted for the COVID virus too. The COVID virus had already undergone several mutations, but its rate is comparatively slower, and the change it produces is also small. According to experts, the virus that is now spreading is not the same as which spread in Wuhan in 2019. The virus has become less contagious and less lethal than it was a year ago. Mutations aren't making it deadlier. But nothing can be predicted for future mutations, as we've got some news that another mutation of the virus is making it more dangerous. What we are trying to say is that it can go both sides from here. If we talk about its effect on vaccine, then, according to researchers, any developed vaccine is likely to counter the effect of future mutations too. According to them, older strains of a virus preserves enough features that it provides immunity against a whole group of its variants. But again, we'll remind you that more data is needed to understand the implications of the new mutations, like whether reinfections after recovery are possible, and whether the changes could affect the vaccines and treatments that are in development. We don't even know about how long the immunity lasts, meaning if a person recovers from the disease, he may be prone to the new mutation again. A lot of things are unclear about the virus, and it is still a matter of extensive research. COVID-19 is not only a global pandemic and public health crisis, it has also severely affected the global economy and financial markets. The pandemic caused the largest global recession in history, with more than a third of the world's population at the time being placed in lockdown. Global stock markets fell on 24th of February, due to a significant rise in the number of COVID-19 cases outside mainland China. By February 28, 2020, stock markets worldwide saw their largest single-week decline since the 2008 financial crisis. Global stock markets crashed in March 2020, with falls of several percent in the world's major indices. The economical growth rate of several countries are also demolished, as they are constantly hitting the negative value for the first time. The main reason for this decline is less production of everything because of lockdown, and a decrease in number of buyers, as a large number of people have lost their lives. As the pandemic spreads, global conferences and events across technology, fashion, and sports are being cancelled or postponed. The monetary impact on the trade and transportation industry is also estimated to be in billions. Unemployment rates are also on surge, be it a developed nation or a developing one. However, several measures are already being undertaken to revive the global economy and to decrease the unemployment rate, but some experts have warned that it could be years before levels of employment return to those seen before the pandemic. Governments had started transportation services as a measure to fight back the recession, but it will only add to the number of cases, if not implemented properly. As the spread of the virus is likely to continue disrupting economic activity and negatively impact manufacturing and service industries, especially in developed countries, we expect that financial markets will continue to be fragile. There is still a question as to whether this unfolding crisis will bring a long-term change or a short one on the economy, but either way, it is evident that this pandemic has inflicted severe economic costs on both global as well as regional economies. Covid-19 is unlike other respiratory viruses known to humans, but in time, chances are high that it could evolve into a seasonal scourge, like the common flu. The scenario depends on many unknowns, and assumes that the new coronavirus will bend towards weather factors. Meanwhile, masks and gloves may become mandatory in certain specific seasons. Researchers believe that majority of the respiratory viruses, including the flu and common coronaviruses, that cause cold symptoms give hints as to what could happen with COVID in near future. All of those viruses have a seasonal variation, being susceptible to changes in weather patterns, like temperature and humidity. The COVID virus has yet to show any signs of seasonality. Cases in the United States soared during the hot summer months, in contrast to typical respiratory viruses that dissipate at that time. However, researchers claim that there is a high probability of the seasonality of this virus. Like other respiratory virus, COVID virus too become more stable in colder weather, meaning that the cases may rise again in the colder season. Cold weather may also allow the virus to travel through the air more easily, in contrast to summer, where higher levels of ultraviolet radiation were more likely to kill the virus. Another reason may be linked with our own immunity. With a little amount of sunlight in winter, there can be a limitation to our vitamin D intake, which has been linked to a weakened immune response to respiratory infections. These were some of the arguments laid down by the researchers. But again, if anything that can be surely said about the virus, is that it never fails to surprise us. The notion of a seasonal conjecture of COVID is a reasonable and a highly probable argument, but nothing conclusively can be said, either for or against this argument, especially at this point in time. Well, we're hoping that this never becomes a reality, but in the interim of all these chaos, scientists have predicted that another such pandemic may strike the world, even when this one has not been over. Coronaviruses are thought to have been circulating in bats for centuries, but have only recently become a leading source of respiratory diseases, alongside other illnesses that originated in animals, such as Ebola and Zika. The point is, that humans must take actions on living in a more sustainable way, maintaining essential balance. According to scientists, if we don't change the ways in which we're impacting our nature, diseases and pandemics are likely to emerge regularly. We have had zoonotic diseases in the past too, but the intervals of such diseases are now shortening to a smaller period. The rate of new diseases are increasing, and will continue to increase, if we do not reassess our relation with how we treat our animals. For example, in the mid of June and July this year, another potential pandemic was found to be spreading in China. It was due to an influenza virus that mainly impacted pigs, but had the potential to infect humans too. We are not here to scare you, but what we are trying to convey is that we together must think of different ways of living a more sustainable life, rather than exploiting our nature without any limit. Climate change and its side effects are already visible, but an average person don't even give a thought to it. We will have to understand that it's the people who are the real danger to this nature, and not a pandemic. COVID-19 is just another warning by our nature, that we must change our ways, or else, we will have to suffer in similar situations which may come afterwards. Hey watcher, thanks for watching the whole video. We hope that you got the message that we wanted to convey. Stay safe, and follow all the safety measure. And remember to do our parts to save this nature. Meanwhile, if you like this video, press the thumbs up button. And don't forget to subscribe this channel, if you want to see more similar videos in near future. Goodbye.